Thanks for joining us today, and thanks again to Tarrant County for hosting us. So in the previous two presentations, you guys heard a lot about the what's. What could happen, if you're not prepared, what could be the liability, all of these things. And today, with our presentation, we're going to give you some of the hows. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about, what kind of emergency notification plans you should have in place. What are some of the demand drivers? Whether it be, something as far as, mandated drivers or, prior incidents. So we'll get into layered approaches. How do you go about implementing an emergency situation? How do you go about implementing that reaction plan? We'll get into some best practices, some statistics, because everybody loves statistics, and then we'll end it with lunch and Q&A. So, how do you issue an emergency notification? I can go around the room and I'm pretty sure I'll get 20, 30 different answers in how you deal with an emergency situation. Reason being is there are so many moving parts. There are so many different people involved. So there's no one answer in how you're going to address an emergency situation. Kind of like the puzzle. You get a puzzle, you throw it on the table, you have all these different pieces, now you got to put it together. So different emergencies, Mr. Driver mentioned this a little bit earlier, there are different things. There are different emergencies require different attention. So whether medical, terrorism, now with Deputy Chief Strickland mentioned earlier, vehicles being a main proponent to cause damage. So there's so many different things, there's so many different, emergency personnel involved in different emergencies. That's why it can take upwards of 30 minutes to coordinate an emergency activation plan. And I'm talking a total deployment from start to finish. And when you're talking about saving lives, you're talking about saving property, that's entirely too long. Statistics show from the FBI that when emergency personnel arrive on scene, specifically law enforcement, in an active shooter situation, it's usually a body count in less than 15 minutes because it takes them that long to get there. So now all they're doing is cleaning up. There was an incident in Dallas off of LBJ a couple of weeks ago where a disgruntled employee, of course, goes into an office building, shoots his boss, and then shoots himself. Dallas police arrive on scene. They have to sweep the building. There were people sitting under desks for hours because they had no idea what was going on. Text, email, phone calls, social media, stakeholders, administrators, all these people are involved in this process. But if you're not reaching the right person, 30 minutes have gone by. What is law enforcement doing? What are they looking for now? Bodies. So timing is of an essence. Everybody knows what emergency mass notification is. It's getting out a message to a large group of people in the fastest way possible, so that everybody knows that there's an emergency situation going on, we need to respond accordingly. But there's a couple of different ways to do that. There's personal notification, which is going straight to an individual, and facility, which is going to notify anybody on the premises. Some of the drivers, especially in schools, are mandated by the Theory Act. You got to have this. You got to meet these demands. You got to meet these, these laws. You can have American or the ADA. You can have individuals with, hearing and visual impairments, physical impairments. How are they getting to safety in an emergency situation? So you could have a previous event where you had a fire, you had an active shooter, you had an intruder, that's driving these things because you didn't have anything in place. So all of these things are going into effect and coming up with an emergency notification response. So there's basically three types. I'm going to reach out to you individually via text, email, I may call you. That's going to come to you. But if you don't have that individual on your HR directory roles, or you don't have that pertinent information, if it's a delivery person, if it's a guest, I'm a guest. I have no idea if they send out an emergency here. I don't have a clue. You know, so we do facility notification. So your delivery people, your guests, your visitors, anybody who's on your premises is going to have access to that emergency notification message. And then we have giant voice. This is a great idea because you have a campus situation. You have a large area that you want to cover. Put big speakers up. Make sure everybody that's walking around your facility or your property or your land is getting that information so they can respond accordingly. So some of the other challenges that, you know, people that we've talked to in emergency situations, there's no way to notify. There are dead areas. There could be areas, you know, that are too loud. You can't, you know, hear, you know, an alarm or a voice message come out. There could be, you know, areas where no cell phones are allowed, which is becoming more and more prevalent now because people are so afraid of data leaving their premises. And then difficulty reaching anybody that may come onto your premises. I know Kirk met us yesterday, you know, but we walked around the premises before we even met him. You know, if something were to go off, we had no idea, no clue. So the NFPA, in their handbook, recommends a multimodal approach. And a multimodal approach is basically blanketing your entire facility and getting an emergency message out. They require at least 2 forms of emergency notification. And to give you an idea of what some of them look like, these are immediate. These are your fire alarm panels, your PA systems that are designed to get that message out to vast audiences. Then there's your personal alerting, like Mr. Driver showed earlier with the computer pop-up. So if I'm sitting at my desk, there's an emergency, it pops up, I know what to do. And I actually had a guy tell me one time, right here. He opened his door to his office, he yelled down the hall, the next person yelled that same message down the hall, and it kept going until everybody was out of the building. If I'm a shooter, you're done. It's a body count at that point. So they recommend a multimodal approach, at least 2, preferably 1 from tier 1, 1 from tier 2. And why doesn't one system fit all? Because what's important in a campus setting may not be important in a factory setting. What's important in a factory setting is not important in a corporate setting. So there isn't a system out there that says, okay, here it is. This is going to fix all your problems. This is going to notify everything. So what are we protecting? You guys got to know that. What does your workforce look like? What does your environment look like? What are some of the systems that you guys currently have in place? And what's going on? Who's from school? So how many times do you guys see students running around with headsets on? So if you're sending out an emergency message via a PA system, are they going to hear it? So you need to know who you protect. You need to understand what their environment looks like. You need to understand what the day-to-day is. You know, your workforce, you know, for those who are in the corporate world, your workforce, is it a transient workforce? You know, do they come and go? Are they, you know, assigned, you know, their own equipment? These different things play into effect or come into effect when you're talking about emergency mass notification. What does your environment entail? What do you have that you can use to send out an emergency message? Do you have a fire alarm system? I hope you do. Do you have a PA system? Are there any ways that, you know, you can use, or anything that you can use to create an emergency notification message? Do you have buy-in from your stakeholders? Are your CEOs, are your bosses, are they involved in the process of emergency mass notification? Do you have their buy-in? Because if you don't have their buy-in, all you're going to do is continue hitting the wall. So, we talked about what do you have in place. Great, you have an access control system. You have a fire alarm system. You have a PA system. How do they work? Can we get these to work together? Can we foster these synergies so that we have a complete emergency notification system? Think outside the box. What can you put in place, like an access control system, to totally and completely engulf your emergency notification system? You know, do you want to bring in weather watch? Do you want to make sure that, you know, your people are notified if there's lightning or severe weather in the area? Bring all of these things together and then understand how you're going to reach all of these individuals. So it's important to integrate a solution into your organization, create standard operating procedures, create a communications plan, because the number one key in any emergency situation is communication. If you don't have communication, it doesn't matter what you have in place, you're not going to be able to get that emergency message out. You need to pre-plan, and pre-plan. And Mr. Driver mentioned it earlier, yeah, that guy. Can't forget that one. They all mentioned earlier, pre-plan. Know what's going to happen before it happens. This way, when it does, you guys are prepared. Inform and educate. Use as much realism in your emergency notification scenarios as possible. I know in the state of Texas, in school systems, you guys have to do a fire alarm once a month. Is that right, Billy?
Each month, students are in the campus more than 10 days.
Okay, and then you do an active shooter once a quarter or a semester?
We do it once a year. You just have to do it once a year, but we do drills twice a semester.
Okay. So all of these things that you're doing, are you using these to get better? Are you using these to get faster? Are you using these to make sure that not only your administrators, your teachers, your students, your employees, but everybody all the way down the line knows what's going on? And you keep doing this on a regular basis. Train, train, train. That's how you do it. State of Texas does it once a month. How often does corporate do it? I've been working for my company for 3 years. We've done it one time. And that was the building manager that did it. One time. And we're in business. So how often do you guys do it? How many administrators do you have or people that change jobs? They move on to other places, that do other things. So now there's that gap where nobody knows what's going on. So you got to keep training, keep making sure that the new people that are coming on know what your emergency processes are. Because if they don't know what your emergency processes are, you don't have an emergency solution. Introduce realism. I go back to the fire alarm drill we did in my company at Alertus. It took 27 minutes for everybody to get out of the building. I personally was on a demo. And I said, it's a fire drill. It's not a court. Somebody actually had to come up in my room, knock on my door, Rob, you gotta go. I'm like, why? It's a drill. You still got to get out the building. But introduce realism. So if you're having that fire drill, helter skelter, let them go. But you can glean information from that. You can learn from that. You can get better, you can get more efficient, you can get faster. Which leads me to this. Test your system. Always test your system. If you're adding new resources into your environment, you want to incorporate them into your emergency mass notification solutions, you got to test them. You got to make sure they're working, right? Observe or deploy observers. I love this because, in the school situation, which I keep using it because that's what most of you guys are, I apologize. Teachers are always standing in the hallways. But what are they really doing? They're just watching the kids walk out and making sure nobody's straggling behind, right? Are they really paying attention to what's going on in that emergency situation so they can take that information back to your emergency managers and let them know, okay, this is what we need to get better on. This is what we need to get more efficient on. So introduce realism. And then hogwash. Always go over the data. The data doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. If you have a system that's going to tell you have 1,000 desktops and only 700 of them were acknowledged, where were those 300 at? How do you get those 300 to acknowledge the next time? So always go over and use the data. These are some of our reports right here that will actually show you how long it takes or took for an activation. How long it took for a particular device to acknowledge that there was an emergency situation and deploy. How valuable is this information in an emergency situation, especially when emergency responders arrive on scene? You can say, here, this is what's going on, this is how it's working, this is how long it took to deploy, this is how long it took our people to get out, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and then you go back and then you can make it better. You can make it more efficient. So An example of a quick deployment, a single point of activation. You have PA systems. You have fire systems. You have access control systems. You have different people that need to be notified in an event of an emergency. So how do we take that 30 minutes that we talked about earlier and turn it into 5 to 11 seconds? Single point of activation. Integrate all your notification assets. Whatever you have in place that has a screen or a speaker, you can use for emergency notification. That will go off, that will be deployed in any emergency situation that you have set up for that particular emergency, and send that message out in 5 to 11 seconds. Add multiple layers of administrators. James, you may be the chief administrator at Arlington IDS. I work underneath you. You got me trained on the system. I need to go to Dallas ISD. You have a funnel. You have a vacuum. Who's going to fill that up? So make sure that you have multiple administrators. Make sure you have that multiple layers of coverage so that you don't have a gap in the event of an emergency situation. Use your existing infrastructure. Guys, you're going to spend a ton of money on this stuff. A ton of money. Why not increase the ROI and use it as an emergency notification device? Use your desktop computer. Use your laptop. Use your PA system. Use your fire alarm panel to send out. Use it all. You've got it. Tap into it. And then fill in the gaps where there aren't any coverage. That's where you, Mr. Driver, spoke of the alert beacon. That's a great device for a large area. This here would be great. Wink, wink. So this would be great. I mean, we're all visitors. We have no idea there's going to be an emergency situation. Alert beacon goes off and you go out the door. You know, smoke areas. People don't think about that. People still smoke. You know, you have coverage if you have 8 or 10 people outside smoking a cigarette on a cigarette break. Can they get that emergency message? Do you have a transient workforce? You know, day-to-day people. How are they getting notified? Fill in the gaps. Make sure that they're covered. And then practice and test. Always practice and test. Brian, you want to show them kind of real quick how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rob has touched on a few things already. Things that we can utilize existing infrastructure, as well as things that we can, you know, when you don't have an infrastructure in place, fill in the gaps. So we have a few devices up here already. A lot of you guys have already seen these demonstrations before, but I just want to show you a little bit of what that looks like. So obviously one of the first devices that we want to talk about with our not existing infrastructure but filling in the gaps is the alert beacon. So think of areas that you don't have notification, dead zones, outdoor areas. We're going to help you fill in the gaps. Chief Strickland mentioned earlier an example at Ohio State University. We also have an example at Ohio State University, one of our largest customers in the higher education space. They actually utilize our Alertus dispatch panic buttons. Think of it this way: you have an emergency, you can have up to 12 of these in a dispatch center, emergency notification office, and when this is pressed, that system's going to go off automatically.
The panic button for Unit Yellow Demo Alert Beacon was pressed at 12:01 p.m.
So whatever behavior was set to that panic button is what's going to come across the TTS, is what's going to come across the desktops. And again, he mentioned you can have a bank approach. You can have one for weather, one for general emergencies, one for fire. You can do it for shelter in place. You can do it for evac. It's each going to have, you know, its own different behavior, and then that's going to be the message associated with that particular event. The other point is to create not just a single point of activation where you can get this emergency message sent out in 5 to 11 seconds, but why not have multiple ways of single point of activation? So he showed you the panic button on the wall. Bear with me 1 second.
The panic button for Unit Yellow Demo Alert Beacon was pressed at 12:01 p.m.
Yeah, so obviously police dispatch, that's going to be important, especially when you want to get that alert out within seconds. But think of other ways you want an alert back to facilities, back to your students, and on the other end of that, how are they going to get an alert back out to your emergency managers, your police officers? So we have a few different options as well with regards to that. One of the options we have is with the desktop panic button. So think of this: you're in a office building, you're in a residence life hall, you're in a building just like this. Somebody walks in, they look suspicious. There's little sensors go off that you want to alert people back to your location. One of the options is the desktop panic button. So very discreet in the bottom of your screen, you have in the desktop tray. Click on a couple buttons. This is just an example of a window that can pop up. Building, room number, name. All this can be pre-populated as well. But think of it this way: you're sitting behind a desk, somebody walks in that's suspicious. You don't necessarily want to pick up the phone and draw attention to yourself. That person could be armed, that person could be dangerous. You want to be calm, cool, collect. So when you
mention, you can also give it incident description.
Absolutely. So it could be a health situation as well. It doesn't have to be anything dangerous. You could be in an office building, you could be in a classroom, and a health situation occurs. We have different incident descriptions as well. But again, everything can be pre-populated, everything can be automatic. This could take a couple steps here. So as you see here, I send this alert back. It can go anywhere you want. It can go back to a campus police officer. It can go to an alert beacon that is situated in that class, in your dispatch office. So a lot of different scenarios.
But you see where it says right here, unit unknown, that would be the location of that particular desktop that was activated. So if I'm sitting in my office,
The panic button for unit unknown was pressed at 12:04 p.m.
security or your administrators will know exactly where they need to go. And we're eliminating steps. As opposed to having to pick up a phone, calling Bob, Bob's not there, you have to call Sue to get to Bob. It's over, it's done. So this one here is going to get that emergency notification like that, and it's going to let these people know exactly where it came from.
And then just bouncing off the panic button, more panic button solutions. You obviously have the desktop. That took a couple steps. Maybe somebody's under distress, maybe somebody's nervous, they don't want to press a couple buttons. We have a lot of different options. We have desktop tray, shortcuts on the desktop. We also have the ability to utilize panic buttons that are attached to your computer. So think of it this way: you have again, same scenario. Somebody's walking in. This could be mounted underneath the desk. Press that button. Same scenario. That button will be pressed. Go back to anywhere you want it to go, and it has that same ability to issue that same alert with that location. So president's office, residence life halls. And again, all these buttons, and everything can be preset, everything can be customized on the fly as well, so you'll have the full ability to get that alert back to your campus safety office.
Again,
This is a test of the Alertus emergency notification system. No action is needed. In a real emergency, this message will contain important alert information.
it's the ability for you guys to be able to create a single point of activation, regardless of your assets, to get out an emergency message as quickly as possible. Mike, you have multiple buildings in your environment. You have, parishioners, you have a sanctuary in one building, you have kids, in another building totally across the street. So something happens across the street. In a normal situation, you have radios, you have phone calls, you have people running across, trying to get somebody to acknowledge this emergency situation. Or you can press a button, or you can hit a desktop, or you can use your cell phone, your mobile devices to activate that emergency message. So it's not just for a single building. Multiple buildings, multiple floors, you can get specific to locations, you can get specific to individuals. The ability to create that emergency message is crucial. And doing it in as many ways as possible to get it out, that's crucial. Time saves. I guess we'll start with the Alertus presentation. So, Mr. Driver mentioned this earlier. there are different things now. And back in my day, it used to be going postal. You know, if somebody went postal, it's because they're shooting up a joint. But now there's so many different things. There's, you know, customers that get mad at their suppliers now, and they're acting out in anger. There are, you know, workforce violence. That's one of the things that's drastically on the rise, according to the FBI. There are domestic disputes that are in the workplace now, in the parking lot. They're all over. So there's so many different things that you guys have to be aware of in an emergency situation as well. You know, what's doing it? How's it going? And Kurt, that's for you, buddy. 153 actually touchdown in the state of Texas. Tornadoes. So,
I was talking about our region.
yeah, it's most of us here anyway. So anyhow, this here, like Deputy Chief Strickland alluded to, is on the rise. Everything is on the rise. Gun violence is on the rise. Physical violence is on the rise. Vehicular, you know, attacks are on the rise. Everything is on the rise. People, for some reason, have short tempers now. So at any time, any place, you know, with any individual, you can have an emergency situation arise. The statistics don't lie. Just the average shooting incidents over a 2-year period is drastically on the increase. We've got to get our people to safety. We've got to get our people to safety fast. So we have some resources on our website. If you want additional information, please go to alertus.com/whatever it is you may be interested in. We have news and case studies, you know, so if in your particular environment, you may want to check out, you know, how your buddy's doing. Oh, Billy, this is James. James, this is Billy. We just signed up James. You may want to talk to him. So you have different things going on in your environment. Your typical, your vertical. That's Alertus, man. That's what we do. Hopefully you guys glean something from this and you're able to input it in your daily emergency activation and your standard operating procedures. And then we'll have a Q&A after lunch, because I see it's here. Let's eat.